From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to you. It's another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 19th. Some of you had, actually many of you had at least some snow yesterday, and then it went over to sleet, in some cases some dangerous freezing rain further south. Wasn't a blockbuster storm, was never expected to be. We talked about this in the last video that we did last Sunday, and then again in the long range that this is going to be a marginal storm, just because of the time it was coming in and things like that, and that maybe we would settle into some cold after that. We are going to get cold, but it's not going to be as prolonged as it looked before, and I'll get into that in this video and show you why. The ever-evolving long range. People ask us, well, you know, what's the point? You had this last week, you were projecting long-range cold and sustained cold, and then week to week it flips. Well, that's the point of doing this every single week. If if I had this all figured out in the beginning of November and it was going to be exact every single week after that, there's no point in doing a weekly long-range update. Things change, things evolve, and models are only projecting to a certain point. We see global observation signals that will get us into certain patterns, and some of them work out, some don't. And it changes. So we're going to talk about that in this video and get into that. But it was nice to see some of you getting some snow yesterday, even if it was minor. And it happened on the weekend, so didn't affect a lot of schools, and obviously didn't affect school. Didn't affect a lot of people with work. Some it did if you worked on weekends, of course. But we had this slightly below average period both Saturday and Sunday. Then we have slightly below the below average. That's going to be in the Monday through Wednesday time frame. We're going to have some colder temperatures. Some areas not getting above freezing for the next couple of days. But this is only a quick shot, about 3 days. And then we get toward the weekend. We start to warm up again. And it just happens to coincide with a storm coming in here, which we're still favoring at this point. We still say rain is most probable at the moment. There are some ensemble members, some models that I'll show you that are suggesting different. They're going to have at least some wintry side for at least the interior location. So we're not going to eliminate that possibility, but I'm still favoring rain as the predominant precipitation type for most of us as we get into next weekend. We do have some winter storm signals out here, but these are kind of, stick your hand in the air and shrug your shoulders. I mean, could they happen? Sure. I mean, we've seen these signals in the longer range. Some fade, some materialize, but they're never really these big storms that a lot of people are looking for. I don't think this is the year of the big storm. It could happen in a thread-the-needle situation, but a lot of these like marginal slop events, I think you have a good chance of this continuing right into February. And I acknowledge that in the last long-range outlook I did. If you read the pattern discussion, I'll actually read an excerpt from that later in the video here. But because it was so warm so far, and it's really not expected to be brutally cold the rest of January, we should average well above average here in terms of a monthly departure of temperatures and kind of near average precipitation. We have near to slightly below average snowfall here. This is probably going to end up below in most areas. And we still didn't change February yet, because it's not the point of the month where we change the February projections. That would come next week. Okay, so everybody's like, oh, you're still going above average. Maybe not. We'll see. I got to look at some things, see how things are progressing in the next week. Next Friday's update will better reflect the February outlook, which is not updated every single week. So it was a carryover from last week. So here's the average January snowfall. We are well behind here in Philadelphia, certainly. I think you're 0.2 this month, or maybe 0.3, something like that. Allentown's a little over 3 inches. Harrisburg's around 5. Scranton's around 7 or thereabout. So you see what I mean here. Northern New Jersey, actually most of New Jersey is below also. So we're not looking at anything going, unless we get something to produce this weekend coming up, or maybe toward the very tail end of the month. It's looking like we're on the lower side of average here for January. And this is what February yields in these same areas here. Could that happen? Sure. Will it happen? I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little skeptical about this February pattern going forward, though, if for those of you who actually took the time to read the pattern discussion that I put out. There's some subtle hints in there. You can see where I'm leaning sometimes. I'm the one that does a long range on Friday. I'm the one that updates it. You'll see it from a personal point of view in the long range projections in the pattern discussion portion. that talks about all the technical stuff, but then it gets into what I'm thinking going forward here, where I'm leaning, and you could definitely see that this past Friday. Here's the examining the temperature periods. Again, this period between Monday and Wednesday is going to be a quick shot of cold. It is transient. It's not as something that's going to be long lasting. And then right time for the weekend, we have milder conditions to coincide with the storm signal that's coming in on Saturday, it looks like. So this could be too warm, according to the GFS anyway, for any kind of wintry precipitation. We'll see. There's a few of them showing at least parts of the area getting some snow out of that, or ice, or both. And then it shows at the end of the month here, it being kind of hanging near to maybe slightly below average, so like kind of like a 0 to -1 Fahrenheit below average period for the end of the month heading into early February. The European model shows this. Now, I see this posted a lot on Twitter from meteorologists that seem to have an agenda. They have either a warm bias, some of them have a cold bias, and they always show the extremes. They never show the variables in between. I'm that guy that's going to show you both, okay, and give you a reality check. There's never any context with it. They'll post a map like this, and like, oh, well, the Euro ensembles are very warm for the end of the month. Are they? Are they? Okay, this is looking at the 20th, 29th period. Same period I showed you on the GFS. GFS ensembles have 0 to -1 Fahrenheit. European model has +1 to +2 Fahrenheit. Is that really much of a difference? Average anomalies this time of year, so let's say your average high is 36. That means the GFS ensembles are suggesting is going to be 35 for an average high. And the European ensembles is saying more like 37 or 38. Is that a big deal? This is the kind of stuff that pisses me off, to be honest with you, because it's stuff it's put on Twitter, it's just thrown out there, it's to fit an agenda, and they just drop it and run and say, oh, it's going to be warm the end of the month, and they don't put any context to it. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of kind of a reality check with this kind of stuff here. Are they really that much? Are they different? Yes, but are they really that much different? No, not really. I would probably favor this solution, though. This is mid-upper 30s and near 40 for highs across our region. This is not really a warm period. But the reason it's doing that is, and the difference here, is I'm using the bias correct. This is the Madden-Julian oscillation. This is a measure of the tropical convection and where its position and strength of which in the or along the equator between the Indian Ocean and the Eastern Pacific. So you run that whole area just north of the equator, and that's what we're looking at, seeing where the best convection is. Well, it's in phase 6 right now, heading into phase 7, and then eventually collapses in a circle of death. This is hard to see here, but the GFS brings it right to 5 and then starts bringing it back here. It looks like it's one continuous line here, but it's not. It actually brings it here and then comes back into the circle of death. You can see that it's very much in agreement here with the European guidance, which does the same thing. You actually see a separation here, so you can see that curl back here. See that? Where it curls back into the circle of death. Phase 5 is not a good phase here for us in the eastern U.S., but if you look at what a phase 5 looks like, look at that. That's departures from average in phase 5. I go back a few frames here. That looks a lot like this, doesn't it? Okay, so that's a phase 5 look. So that's what the European model is showing. The GFS ensembles do not get it quite as far into phase 5. It brings it right to the edge here and brings it back into the circle of death. So it may be not quite as warm, if you will. So instead of being +1 to +2, it's 0 to -1. Okay, Fahrenheit. It's not much different. Okay, so it looks a lot like this. So it does bring it back into the circle of death after that point when we're back into this variable state here. But I'm very skeptical going forward of things like I'm seeing on the Euro Weeklies. Here's the Euro Weeklies. It starts out that same period at the end of the month, kind of near average or thereabout. Then it gets into this near to slightly below average configuration of temperatures straight through February. This is looping through one day at a time. See, it starts off near to slightly above average, and then it goes to slightly below, and it kind of stays near to slightly below pretty much the entire month for this last run that ran on Thursday. Okay, and it's been trending in that direction here. So this whole loop goes to that whole period, late month through the end of February. So this is what it's showing. A little skeptical that it stays like that. I think it's going to be very marginal temperatures here in the month of February. Even the Euro monthlies are suggesting that the coldest temperatures are going to be up here in the upper Midwest, maybe getting into the western part of the Ohio Valley. But look at our area here. This is a 2-meter temperature anomaly here. It's showing very, very slightly below average. So kind of like what we have projected, -1 to -3 Fahrenheit, because it's 0 to -1 Celsius, or about -1 Celsius. So yeah, it's about right. That's about what we have projected. And I do think if you're averaging the entire month as a whole, we are going to be notably cooler in February compared to January, which is going to obviously finish well above average. But it doesn't mean you're going to get big snows necessarily, and I'm very skeptical of that. This is the excerpt that I wrote. I just want you to hear that because I'm going to read it to you. The model still suggests this up and down pattern continues into February. This is the end of the month period I'm talking about from this month. So it's going to continue, we think, into February, at least the early part, and less than favorable teleconnections at times. And we're going to have to rely on cold shots to coincide with storms and storm signals that we have outlined going forward. Otherwise, they're going to be rain, just like that system that comes in next weekend I'll get to in a minute. It is very possible that February continues this up and down trend that we expect through the end of the month, and a lot of marginal events will continue. A bigger storm threat will be more of the thread the needle variety and likely the exception, not the rule. Okay? So that's what I wrote in the pattern discussion portion of the long-range outlook. Now, without sounding too doom gloom for snow glovers, as I go on here, without sounding too doom and gloom for snow glovers, I have to acknowledge that February can go either way, bust or boom. There are too many mixed signals right now to make a definitive projection, so confidence in the chart is lowered to moderate to low in the chart for that reason. Analogs would suggest a snowy February, but analogs haven't been the most reliable this winter either thus far, so there's that. Okay, so that's what I wrote in the pattern discussion. So again, little subtle hints I'll throw in there every single week so you can see where I'm kind of leaning. So I'm very skeptical going forward, and one of the reasons I'm so skeptical is because looking at these teleconnections, not very good. This is not very good. This is the Eastern Pacific Oscillation was something we thought was going to be a dominant player in this winter's weather. We haven't seen anything but positive EPOs this entire winter. If you have bad other teleconnections, like maybe the polar vortex is too strong over the pole, maybe the Madden-Julian Oscillation is not in the correct phases, in the warmer phases, and spending most of its time in the warm phases like we saw in 2014, you're going to rely on the Eastern Pacific Oscillation being negative to offset that. We haven't seen that. We're not seeing that going forward. It's remaining positive straight through the next 15 days. So this is not a pattern that's telling me it's going to be cold and snowy. Furthermore, North Atlantic Oscillation as you're blocking over Greenland. It's positive straight through the end of the month, and then maybe it dips to negative here, and the European Ensemble is indicating that too. That it does that in early February. So there's a shot there maybe for that early February winter storm signal we showed that there could be something wintry with that too. We'll see. If you have blocking, you have a chance, or if you have a negative EPO, which we don't project to have, you have a chance. I just don't see this big storm possibility through the month of February, at least as I'm looking at it right now. Could that change? Yes. Could this blocking here in the beginning of the month be realized to get stronger and turn into something that's going to be a better snow event for the snow lovers? It's possible. Not liking the chances though right now. I have to err on the side of caution with this. So when you're looking at this, or the long range projections for this and for next weekend, this is what the GFS has a rain system. This is what we're favoring to be the correct solution for next weekend. Doesn't mean it won't be different, especially not at least portion of it. Okay, European model shows this. You got rain for most of us, but then you have the interior, northern areas, and western areas getting some snow involved with this. That's a possibility. Canadian model's even more aggressive with that, where it has an ice storm going over to snow. That's a possibility too. But if I'm going to favor a solution, it's going to be the GFS right now, just because I think it's going to have enough of us in the with above average temperatures in the mid 40s or thereabout, where that's not going to be conducive for any kind of wintry precipitation. Can that change? Absolutely. Will fall throughout the week. I'm just saying from a probability study standpoint, which all long-range outlooks are, they are probability based. The best chance is to see something more wet than white as we head into next weekend. Keep following us throughout the week. We'll update you with that information, but it looks like right now, based on what I'm seeing with this stuff here, this is not conducive of a snow event. And there's no, at the same time this is coming in, which is right about here, you got a positive NEO, positive EPO, not really going to help you. And it hasn't helped us so far this winter, so why would this be any different? So a lot of marginal stuff. I'm not saying we're not getting any snow the rest of the winter at all. I'm not saying anything. I just don't know how February is going to go. And I have to acknowledge that February can go either way. I said bust or boom. There's too many mixed signals right now to make a definitive projection, so confidence is low. All right, so I hope you all understand that there's a lot of mixed signals out there. There's things that look great. There's things that look like crap. And we're trying to balance the two to see which one works out. Okay, so we can wish in one hand and you know what in the other, see which one fills up first. Okay, I know that's a hard pill to swallow for some of you snow lovers that are looking for this big blockbuster winter. It's just not looking like it's the best winter this year. Okay, can that change and it could go in your favor? Absolutely, we'll see. Colder this week, then moderating toward the end of the weekend. We're watching a storm. Uncertain precipitation type at the moment. Again, leaning toward rain, but there could be some wintry involved with that, and we're going to see how that evolves throughout the week. It could turn into be a mostly wintry event. Who knows? Okay, these models are still guessing on a lot of things, so we'll see. Near to slightly above average temperatures expected late January and the first few days of February. I think maybe for February 1st, 2nd, maybe even 3rd. We start off kind of like near to slightly above, and then we might go back to the slightly below average after that. Maybe we're still looking hopeful for that. Analogs are suggesting that, but again, analogs have not really been that great this year because of that EPO not flipping as they expected. Still some winter chances, but February can either go boom or bust. The evolution of that entire month is uncertain. We're starting to get a better handle on at least the beginning of the month, but as we progress through the month here, you know, the suggestion that it's going to become cold and snowy, we keep kicking the can down the road here. I'm not going to keep kicking into March, folks. Because once you get to March, you're dealing with sun angle issues. It can snow in March, believe me. And, you know, that would be our luck. We have a crappy winter all the way through the end of February. And then March and April want to be cold and, you know, with snow threats. That's just going to... Let's hope that doesn't happen. That's not what I want to do. So these marginal events are even worse. But it does look like we still have winter chances going forward. They may be marginal in nature, kind of like we saw yesterday. Might not be big. They might be big. We'll see. It could be more thread the needle stuff here that we're dealing with going into the month of February. Or it could turn colder like everything some models are suggesting, and you get a big storm that makes up for it all in one shot. Hey, that has happened before. Wouldn't be the first time, but it is uncertain with that evolution at this time. Hopefully we get forward here. We'll get a little bit more clarity. I'm not trying to, you know, blow smoke up your rear end here. I call it like I see it. If I don't know, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not going to sit here and BS you and say, oh, well, it's going to be really cold and snowy in February, or it's going to be mild and rainy the entire month. There just seems to be on, you know, meteorologists on both sides that have an agenda that want to play both ends, and they cherry pick whatever is best for fitting their agenda. I'm not going to do that. I'm calling like I see it. I don't know yet. We'll see going forward how we're looking. But right now, I'm just not going to. I'm going to play the realistic in the middle card here and just show you both sides, and you can make your own decision. We'll see what we can follow going forward and see if this evolves. And it will evolve. We'll get the better signal of what's going to happen with time, but we're just not there yet. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 19th. Join us again next week. Hopefully, have a little more clarity on what February is going to do at that point, at least at the beginning. And maybe we'll have some storm signals to track at that time. Take care.